When 13 million Americans are about to lose Medicaid, why is the Trump administration asking taxpayers for $50 million to buy a luxury Gulfstream jet? That's the question Senator Ruben Gallego hammered DHS Secretary Kristi Noem with, and her answer was awkward at best.
Gallego.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Secretary Noem, for attendance today. Let me start by also agreeing with Senator Moreno on some things, and I think it is positive the Trump administration has provided stronger border security to keep illegal border crossings as close to zero as possible. We definitely have seen that in Arizona. My concern is that it's not sustainable. It's expensive. That's why I recently released a common sense border security that would make it sustainable and would actually deliver long-term solutions. But let me get to my first question. Your department is overspending right now. It's on track to run out of money again by mid-July to support a mass deportation campaign that can't be afforded. At the same time, though, you recently requested a $50 million allotment for a private Gulfstream jet. That's $50 million of taxpayer money to subsidize some of your national tours that you've been going on. Meanwhile, Republicans are about to kick another 13 million people off Medicaid to fund taxes for the rich on the backs of some working-class Americans. So how can you justify spending millions, 50 million, on a jet while your department is definitely overspending and Republicans in Congress are about to strip also health care from millions of Americans?
Well, Senator, thank you for the question. We are spending our dollars appropriately and will be on budget. When your reference to the airframe that was the requested dollars were put in for, that's for the Coast Guard. It's to replace an existing jet that is over 20 years old and is beyond its usable hours. And the Coast Guard for many, many years has been neglected and has many airframe that have been grounded because they can't even be maintained anymore. The suppliers that give us parts and repairs and maintenance for them have said that they'll no longer support that kind of a mission. We have cutters that haven't been completed, that haven't been deployed out across the world. And then we also, beyond that, are asking for a request to build out the number of Coast Guard members that we need in place. We're asking for 15,000 more to complete the missions that are going forward.
Are you going to have access to that $50 million Gulfstream jet that the Coast Guard is going to supply?
The Coast Guard will use that jet exactly how it uses the jets that it has today, exactly in the same manner that it uses the ones that it has in place today.
So would you consistently be using it to travel?
I don't know if I would use that one or if I would use the other one. I have no idea. But I do spend time out there with our components, making sure that they are know that they have a secretary that's engaged with them, that's visiting with them, seeing what their needs are. No, sir, they're not photos. They've meant the world to the individuals at the Department of Homeland Security. They have meant the world to our ICE agents, our border agents. When they ask me to be out there with them, so they know what their lives are like.
Talking to some law enforcement, besides those under DHS, we've also seen some law enforcement that have been pulled away from investigations such as child porn, sex trafficking. We've had some agents pulled in that were doing investigations on bank fraud that are now, provisional ICE agents. And I think creating and making them do this type of work is also making us more and more dangerous since they're not actually doing this long-term investigation. On the other hand, I have talked to some border chiefs and sheriffs repeatedly, and they've been highlighting the danger associated with cartels targeting teenagers in border communities through social media apps and recruiting them to participate in smuggling operations. And one of the bills I introduced with several colleagues here actually is the Combating Cartels on Social Media Act, which will help DHS counter this threat. Arizona communities cannot wait for the legislative process to play out on this. What is DHS doing to solve this problem and help keep American children and communities safe from cartel criminal activity and recruitment too?
Well, that is the problem that we have with the longer that they're here, the more established they become and the more they recruit individuals who may live in this country, U.S. citizens, or even our kids to be a part of their operations.
On the other side too. It's both sides.
What do you mean on their side?
Some of the cartels are using social media on, let's say, Mexico,
yes,
wherever.
Yes, definitely they are.
So it's back and forth.
Yes, they definitely are. But they also are infiltrating our country still by recruiting our children to be a part of their networks. That's the problem. Yeah. So we're working with not just the experts that we have within CBP and ICE, but also using our other components to address some of the sophistication that we've seen in these apps as far as CISA and partnerships that they may have with private industry that can give us insight in what we can do to deploy our own counter-terrorist activities and applications to those systems, what we can do to make sure that we're stopping their ability to communicate with our children and bringing awareness. The Department of Homeland Security has programs in different areas such as the
And that
Know
is good,
to
but
Protect and the other programs you may be
And
familiar
have you
with.
been able to
that-
work directly with the social media companies, though, not just through the
We
legislative
have
process?
had conversations with the social media companies, and
Because
we've,
by the time we get around to doing it,
Right.
we're losing more and more people. So like having a very direct conversation and a concentrated effort to actually have outcomes is going to be quicker because they have the option to do it. We don't have to come in and do it. They just choose not to because they'd rather make more money than anything else.
well, that may be, but I found them very willing to come to the table. I've had myself spent dozens of hours with them, and my team has spent hundreds of hours visiting with them on what we can do to be much more proactive. So they've got some solutions that we can pursue. We'll be coming to you with some of those ideas, but I think it's important that we use their knowledge of this way of communication and recruitment to help protect our children.
Get back.
Senator Ernst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Secretary.
As DHS burns through its budget on mass deportations and perks, investigations into human trafficking, cybercrime, and cartel recruitment of U.S. kids are left underfunded. This isn't just a jet, it's a window into a government spending on optics, not outcomes. During a heated Senate hearing, Senator Ruben Gallego went straight for the jugular. He highlighted the stark contradiction between the government's demands and its spending habits. On one hand, over 13 million Americans are facing the loss of Medicaid, told to tighten their belts as Republicans pursue tax breaks for the wealthy. On the other, the Department of Homeland Security is requesting $50 million for a luxury Gulfstream jet. Gallego framed it as a gut check. How can officials justify luxury spending while critical services and health care for working-class Americans are slashed? His pointed questions weren't just about a plane, they were about priorities, fairness and accountability in a government that often preaches fiscal discipline while indulging in elite perks on the taxpayer's dime. Secretary Kristi Noem responded with a measured but defensive explanation. She insisted the $50 million request was not for personal travel but to replace a 20-year-old Coast Guard jet nearing the end of its service life. She argued that aging aircraft have become expensive to maintain, with suppliers refusing to provide parts for certain outdated models. Noem emphasized that the Coast Guard has been chronically underfunded, with grounded airframes and incomplete cutters hampering missions. When pressed by Gallego about whether she personally would use the new jet, her answer was hesitant and unclear, admitting she travels to DHS components but unsure which aircraft she would use. This evasiveness fed the perception that amid budget crises and mass deportation spending, DHS is prioritizing luxury optics over mission-critical needs and public accountability. Beyond the jet itself, this confrontation highlighted deeper issues about the government's priorities and spending choices. DHS is burning through its budget on mass deportations and executive perks, while vital programs remain underfunded. Investigations into cybercrime, child exploitation, and human trafficking are stalled as agents are reassigned to border operations. Meanwhile, cartels exploit social media to recruit U.S. teens, embedding themselves in communities while digital enforcement struggles. The episode exposes a wider pattern. Fiscal responsibility is preached to the public but ignored in practice, with working-class Americans carrying the burden. Instead of investing in child protection units, tech capabilities, or community safety, the department is pursuing luxury travel. The $50 million request became a symbol of a government increasingly disconnected from its stated mission and from the people it serves. Politically, the exchange was a defining moment. Senator Gallego's confrontation crystallized a growing public frustration, a government claiming to protect Americans while diverting resources toward elite comforts. For the public, the imagery is damning. A luxury Gulfstream jet soaring above a landscape where families lose healthcare and law enforcement lacks the tools to combat crime. The narrative reinforces a sense of hypocrisy. Leaders speak of budget discipline yet approve perks that serve the few, not the many. For Republicans pushing Medicaid cuts and deportation campaigns, the optics are particularly damaging. For Democrats, it's an opportunity to underscore a pattern of misplaced priorities. The takeaway is clear: when power and purpose diverge, public trust erodes. This confrontation wasn't just political theater, it was a reminder of the stakes for ordinary Americans watching their government choose jets over justice. If this made you pause or frustrated you, don't stay silent. Like, comment, and subscribe for more breakdowns of government spending and accountability. Your voice keeps the spotlight on power.